Welcome to Abyss of Horror, a place where the darkness whispers, and the unknown watches from the shadows. Tonight we take you deep into the forgotten woods, where an abandoned village waits, lost in time, and hungry for new souls. The road had long disappeared behind them, swallowed by the dense forest. James gripped the steering wheel tighter, eyes flickering between the flickering GPS and the vast, endless darkness beyond the windshield. Beside him, Claire hugged herself, her breath fogging up the glass. "We should have hit the highway by now," she muttered, her voice tinged with unease. James exhaled sharply. "I know, but the damn thing keeps rerouting. It said there was a shortcut." Claire glanced at the phone mounted on the dashboard. The signal was gone. The battery, once at 70%, now blinked red at 5%. She felt a chill slither up her spine. "James, let's just turn back." He opened his mouth to argue, but then he saw it. Shadows shifting in the trees, moving unnaturally fast. His knuckles turned white against the steering wheel, and then, as if answering Claire's plea, the engine sputtered and died. Silence. Claire's breath hitched. What just happened? James turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. Something was wrong. They stepped out into the cold night, breath visible in the damp air. The darkness felt thicker here, pressing against them, stretching beyond the narrow beam of their phone flashlights. Then, through the gaps in the trees, Claire spotted something. A silhouette of buildings. "A village?" she whispered. James followed her gaze. He frowned. There's nothing on the map. But it was there, unmistakable. A cluster of buildings, rooftops jagged against the starless sky. There were no street lights, no sounds, no signs of life. "Maybe someone can help us," James said. Claire hesitated, but staying in the woods felt worse. Together they trudged through the undergrowth, the skeletal branches clawing at them like unseen fingers. As they stepped into the village, the first thing they noticed was the smell. Rot. The stench of damp wood, decayed flesh, and something metallic. The air itself felt stale, as if it had been trapped in this forsaken place for centuries. The buildings, though seemingly intact, bore an unnatural stillness. Windows gaping like empty eye sockets. Doors ajar as if waiting. "Hello?" James called out. Silence. Then a whisper. It came from the alleyway between two buildings. Low. Indistinct. Claire gripped his arm. "We shouldn't be here." James scanned the street. Faded signs hung above closed shops. A butcher's store, its glass smeared with something dark. A schoolhouse, its bell frozen mid-swing. And at the very end of the road, an inn, its door slightly open. A breeze swept through, carrying something with it. A faint shuffling sound. James stepped forward. There might be a phone inside. Claire swallowed her protest and followed. The inn's interior was worse than the street. Dust coated every surface. Tables were still set. Plates of food long since rotted into black sludge. The fireplace, though dead, carried the scent of charred wood. And then there were the paintings. Portraits lined the walls, their subjects eerily lifelike. Men, women, even children, all with hollow, unseeing eyes. The farther they walked in, the more unsettling the details became. One of the paintings had fresh scratches across the canvas, as if something had tried to claw its way out. A whisper slithered through the air again. Claire spun around. "James, we need to go." But James was staring at something. A guestbook sat on the counter, open. His fingers trembled as he traced the last entry. It was his name. "James and Claire," he whispered. Claire felt ice bloom in her chest. That's not possible. The ink was fresh. James turned the page. More names. Hundreds of them, spanning decades. But the last few pages, all the signatures were theirs, over and over. A chair screeched behind them. Claire gasped, whipping around. The room was empty. Then, the paintings had changed. Every portrait now wore the same expression, grinning. Their hollow eyes focused directly on Claire and James. Footsteps echoed upstairs, heavy, slow, coming closer. James grabbed Claire's hand and they bolted. Out of the inn, down the street, lungs burning. The whispering grew louder, turning into overlapping voices, a chorus of unintelligible murmurs. Shadows moved in the windows, shapes lurking in doorways. They reached the village entrance, but the forest, it was gone. Only an endless stretch of road lay before them, looping back into the village. James panted, turning in circles. No, this isn't real. Claire clutched her head. We're trapped. Then the bell rang. A deep, resonant sound that shook the ground. The windows of the buildings erupted inward, glass shattering. The village awakened. Figures emerged from the doorways, their faces twisted, eyes hollow pits. They reached out with skeletal fingers, mouths stretching too wide in silent laughter. James and Claire backed away. From the alley, a shape stepped forward. Tall, gaunt, a face that was almost human. "You came home," it said, its voice slithering through the air. James choked on his breath. He knew that voice. It was his own. The creature smiled, revealing rows of jagged teeth. It extended its hand, beckoning. And James stepped forward. Claire screamed, grabbing his arm, but he didn't resist. His eyes were distant, vacant, as if something had already taken him. "James, no." The creature's hand closed around his wrist. His skin blackened on contact, veins spidering like cracks in porcelain. His mouth opened in a silent scream, before his body twisted, collapsing into a withered husk. Then the husk smiled. Claire stumbled back. No, this isn't real." The whispers laughed. "You never left," they cooed. The village shimmered. The buildings decayed further, walls crumbling to reveal nothing but darkness inside. The figures that had emerged dissolved into mist, their hollow faces melting into the void. And then she saw it. Her own name in the guestbook, dated years ago. A cold hand touched her shoulder. "Welcome back," it whispered. The bell rang again, and the village swallowed her whole. If you enjoyed this terrifying tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. What do you think happened to Claire and James? Let us know in the comments. if you dare. This has been Abyss of Horror. See you in your nightmares.